Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared, and today we're talking about a very entertaining story that DC did in the 90s. We're talking about JLA New World Order. I also have the Omni out because it's included in that because, all right, pre this series by Grant Morrison, the JLA was made up of C, D, E, F tier characters like Ice, Fire. Well, Booster Gold, I would argue, is more B tier, but still. Blue Beetle, Martian Manhunter disguised as someone else. In other words, the characters that you think of when you think of the Justice League weren't on the team. So when Grant Morrison came in, he basically said, why aren't our top superheroes on the Justice League? So what he did was when he took over Justice League, he made it so the other team basically got asked to leave, and then the new team came in. And this team was made up of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, because remember, Hal Jordan was dead at this point, and the Flash was Wally West. This is the team that you think of when you think of the Justice League. So his first arc was New World Order. So we're going to get started on that. I'm thinking, should I share my screen on this? I'll share my screen. All right, so we're talking about JLA number 1. This is like a 4-part story, so it shouldn't take us that long to cover the entire tale. So, story opens up. In Washington, D.C., a spaceship suddenly appears above the White House, pretty much like Independence Day. And then the rest of the league are like, okay, we got this. We're still the league until the new team moves in. But then everyone's like, oh no, okay, Superman's got it. So Superman shows up and he makes contact with a bunch of beings known as the Hyper Clan. They're essentially, and they say, I am Protex. We are the Hyper Clan and we've come to save the world. They're basically like, it's not really anagrams, but analogs for the Justice League. And so they arrive and say, hey, we're here to help. We're here to help. We're here to save the world and do what's necessary to save the world. So you see the Justice League are seeing this declaration on TV. By the way, the book is Grant Morrison and Howard Porter on art. Just want to let you know. So you see the Hyper Clan are like solving all these natural disasters to gain trust, and Superman is like, but what the Hyper Clan starts doing is solving every one of the people's problems, like even ones that the Justice League didn't get involved in. So Superman's like, should we allow people to become like pampered people, essentially, where their every need is brought to them? And Hyper Clan is like, you're being a little unfair. No, it's like the news is saying, well, Superman's just jealous because he's being upstaged, and Protex is pretty much saying, no, Superman has some valid concerns, but they're just not going to do that. And then what you see is the Hyper Clan start executing people. But what's kind of funny is if you look at these characters, there's like, oh, Wolverine, Dr. Doom. I don't know who this would be, but there's like all these like analogs, for like the Marvel characters, which was really kind of funny when you're reading this, because it's like Grant Morrison's going, haha, Marvel, you guys suck. So moving on. Then we see on the Justice League's Watchtower satellite, they come under attack by beings in space suits. And then it's basically the Hyper Clan attacking and taking out the Watchtower. It'll be revealed in a second. So you see the League tries their best to defend it. Wonder Woman and Kyle go outside and start fighting outer space. And then you see, all right, so there's no more like escape pods. So because the escape pods aren't working, so what Metamorpho does is he creates a little pod around the survivors, and they eject out as Wonder Woman and Kyle Rayner engage the Hyper Clan. And then so it looks like then the pod hits, because it's kind of like it's going to burn up on impact. Then Protex builds sort of builds a fortress of solitude, if you will, in the Antarctic. Then the pod crashes, and it looks like Rex, the Metamorpho, was killed. He's just knocked out of commission. Then you have the League going to like deal with the new League trying to figure out, okay, so what are you going to do with the Hyper Clan? Then Batman's up to like a boss going, okay, I'm here. I've been here for an hour. Wait, actually, they're like, okay, so we've been waiting for Batman for like an hour. And it's like, Batman's like, I've been here for an hour. What are you talking about? It's just being Batman, in other words. And then what you have is the League says, okay, now we're at war. What's cool about each of these issues are titled after alien invasion movies, like classic alien invasion movies, like The Day the Earth Stood Still and such. So we're going on to the next one. We see the Hyper Clan's fortress, their basic fortress of solitude. They have all these bases, and then the League decides, okay, so we're going to split up and deal with the Hyper Clan. So Wonder Woman goes to deal with the water fortress, and then she's attacked by the clan members, Hyper Clan. I don't know why I said clan members. And then Aquaman shows up. What's kind of funny is Aquaman is like, wait a second, this isn't my Wonder Woman says, hey, you were summoned, the League needs help. And then Aquaman's like, this isn't my issue. I'm just I rule all this water. And Wonder Woman's like, yes, but you have responsibility. And he goes, well, the sea is my responsibility. And the Wonder Woman's like, oh, that's ridiculous to say. And then they get attacked by the Hyper Clan. Aquaman goes to fight one, Wonder Woman goes to fight one, and then they're taken out. Then Flash and Green Lantern go to the desert fortress and come under attack by Zoom. Not reverse Flash Zoom, but just the character named ZUM with an umlaut on top. Then Lantern is attacked by other members of the Hyper Clan. Martian Manhunter is basically turned to the bad side by Protex. This will be revealed later. Superman and Batman go and engage the Hyper Clan, and then Batman is basically shot down. But what's interesting, and then the Hyper Clan takes out Kryptonite and captures Superman. But what's interesting about that ends this issue. Now, what's interesting about this one panel will be very important later, and it'll be revealed why it's important in one of the most boss Batman moments, like I think I've ever, one of the most boss Batman moments like ever. Next, War of the Worlds. So now we have part 3. So when we get through all this, we'll have a nice discussion about where the League went from here in Grant Morrison's run. So then we have the Hyper Clan has kidnapped every member of the Justice League, and they're like hovering a piece of kryptonite above Superman, sort of immobilizing him, if you will. And we have Batman, who escaped the crash of his Batplane, and he has a pretty good idea what these creatures are. And he goes, they think I don't pose a threat because I don't have any powers. Well, they're wrong. So he gets in, and then we have Wally West fighting Zoom some more, and then he takes out Zoom, and then Green Lantern is still fighting the Armech and the weird Captain America dude who throws a shield, and he's saved by Wally West, and they go to where the Hyper Clan is holding the League, and then they get captured off panel. And they're being put into this like murder machine style monster, which I guess will allow them to drain the power of the Justice League. And what they're waiting for is they want to be able to broadcast the deaths of the League to the world when they take over, because obviously they reveal that they're the bad guys now and they want to take over the Earth. So then this gets really good. So they know Batman's there, has gotten into the fortress. So the weird skull version one goes out to confront Batman, and then he gets taken out off panel. And then the rest of the Hyper Clan goes to deal with Batman. And I love how they go, he's only a man. And Superman just grins, because that's Superman saying, oh, you have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? So then we get the So the dude that went to go fight Batman is knocked out, and he's hanging above the rafters with a batarang in his chest, and the note that says, "I know your secret." Then Batman. And then what the Hyperclan discovers is that there's this weird. So they surround Batman, and they see there's this weird liquid surrounding them. And then they go to Batman. Okay, any last words? We're ready when you're ready. So Batman goes. I'm going to actually read this because this is so cool. 1 or 2, super strength, flight, invulnerability, shape changing, mind control. You're Martians, aren't you? And when you brought down my aircraft, you didn't dare search the wreckage because of the one thing which robs you of your powers. And what is that, you may ask? I'm just checking the audio on my microphone. Yes, and what is that, you may ask? Fire. So that's why. So remember when I told you that panel of the crash Batplane would be important? That's because they didn't search the wreckage for Batman's body because so historically Martians have been like shown to be weak to fire, although it differs from being weak to kill them. Like that sort of vacillated throughout comic book history. So in this one, it's like it's really bad for them. So then they realize that liquid. So Batman takes out a box of matches, shakes up, and then the Hyperclan's like, "You can't hurt us with this," with like a little match. And he goes, "Oh yeah, you're right." But then they realize the weird liquid is gasoline, and he creates a ring of fire, weakening the Martians. And then he goes, "Let's do this." And then he goes to fight and then he completely destroys the Martians. And then the Martian fleet, but these are white Martians, these are the evil Martians. They decloak, and then the invasion starts. And then and next, invaders from Mars. And here's the last issue. And then once again, after this issue, I'll talk about a little more, talk about how important this Justice League run was, what different movies I think it inspired, and so forth. So now we see Superman. He's going through this mental like battle, and he goes. So Superman is like, okay, so wait a second. So the kryptonite makes moving his head feel like dragging a planet from orbit, mind control. But kryptonite, well, what if it's not real? Psychosomatic symptoms triggered by a telepathic implant. So one of the powers the Martians have is telepathy. So what they did to Superman, that kryptonite's not real. They just made him think it's real. In other words, it's like you know how like when you're afraid to get sick, so you then start feeling sick. It's like psychosomatic symptoms. So that's it. They made him think there's kryptonite. So when he realizes there's no kryptonite, he breaks out. He goes, "You're Martians." And then Superman goes to war with Protex. And then Martian Manhunter reveals, "Oh yeah, I wasn't on your side the whole time. We actually took out Armac. I've been disguised as him the entire time." So then the rest of Armac and Zoom are like racing to the fortress just in time to be defeated. Superman and Protex go to battle, and then you can see the rest of the Justice League arrives to fight. They've broken out of that weird murder flower machine, and then they actually realize, okay, so this is how so now we know the Martians, let's beat them. So what the Flash does, he takes a bunch of candles and just makes a ring of candles around Armac, and that's how they defeat him. Then Green Lantern creates like a 16-ton weight with his willpower and just crushes Armac. Then what Aquaman does is he basically goes, okay, so you're Martians, now wait a second. So, you know, what's interesting is Aquaman goes, well, let me think. I can locate your brain's basal ganglia, the part inherited from your marine ancestors, your water ancestors, and he gives him a seizure. Then Wonder Woman takes the female Martian, I can't remember her name, Primate, and takes her to space and just completely destroys her. Then Superman's fighting Protex and soundly defeats him because he's Superman. And then I love where all of a sudden you just see like a body just fly through the walls, and then she goes, and then one woman goes, I can't believe how long she could hold her hair, hold her breath up there. Then Wonder Woman's like, okay, so what so how long can you hold your breath? And obviously longer than primate. What a strange question. Why should anyone know how long they can hold their breath? It's like, okay. And then the League finally apparently defeats Protex. And then he's like, okay. So Superman gets in the loudspeaker and goes, okay, guys, don't panic. He's sending this to the world, by the way. He goes, okay, everyone take out fire. That's how we beat the Martians. So everyone just lights matches and then goes to war with the Martians. And then the Martians surrender and then retreat. So now Superman and Jean are talking, and he goes, "Okay, so what do we do with all these white Martians?" And then Jean's like, "Okay, so there's actually a punishment we used to do on Mars, and it actually might work for these guys." So in the Sahara, they realized that. Okay, so one of the things the HyperClan had done is that a lot of the extreme environments in the world were like all of a sudden flourished, like the Sahara and all that. But now that the HyperClan is gone, it started to wither and die. And this begs the question, okay, so they weren't necessarily wrong in that maybe we could be doing more. And then Superman's like, that's not our job. We're really just here to just catch people when they fall. And then they build the moon base on the moon, which was in various games like Justice League Heroes. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, JL Heroes. It's their version of Ultimate Alliance that was on. So they did that. I'm trying to think what other movie. Actually, if you remember, if you guys have seen Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, the movie, the animated movie, and also later on the Grant Morrison run, they the moon base was present there. Even the crime syndicate had the moon base. And then so what's revealed is that special Martian prison, what it is they made these Martians think they're humans, and they have to go through their lives never knowing that they're Martians. And ironically, a lot of them are firefighters. So that is the end of Justice League New World Order. So it's a very good story. It's one of the few by Grant Morrison that's actually easy to understand, because he doesn't put in like all these like weird analogies and so forth. So I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's like one of the highlights of his run, and it's actually a really good way to start it. Now you may be wondering, okay, so where to go from here? So from here, what's interesting is that in the very next story arc, this is where we get the electric blue Superman suit from the 90s, which was horrible. But Grant Morrison manages to do cool stuff with it. Like, let me see if I can get a picture of the blue suit for you. Okay, it's right there. Right there. That's the blue suit Superman, and he had like weird energy powers, and that blue suit's actually a containment suit. So that was actually really like, okay. Then you had Dr. Morrow making an android Justice League member to spy on everyone. Then you had like basically the Heaven's Angels invading. This is where you get like Zoriel, and I talked about him when I was on MVP stream like a couple of months ago. Then you have an arc where it's basically like an Elseworlds arc, where what you have is the Justice League are taken down by this dude called the Key. And what he does to keep them docile is he puts them in like a state of suspended animation where they all dream while he's like gaining power from them. So they each have their own little dreams. Like Superman dreams that he became a Green Lantern. Batman dreams that he got to retire, and then his sons became Batman. Aquaman lives in a world where the entire like world has been like sunk. And you have Connor Hawk, Green Arrow, who's replacing Oliver Queen because Ollie died, and ironically later be brought back to life. Wonder Woman's is that she's in World War II fighting Germans, and once again, that's not anything different from the movie. And then the Flash is the thing where apparently to him, everyone is capable of super speed, and he has this weird like steel style suit where it's like this liquid around him. Then the League eventually breaks out of their containment thanks to Flash and the others. And then we get the storyline Justice League Rock of Ages, which is basically they get propelled into the future where Darkseid took over. So it's very much like the Snyderverse in that there's the nightmare future where Darkseid took over with the help of Superman. So I can kind of see where Snyder got the inspiration there. Additionally, you got storylines. Well, so it's actually really funny. Okay, so in Rock of Ages, take Rock of Ages. First off, this the origin of the phrase Darkseid is. Now, also, what's funny is that so Wonder Woman's dead in that storyline because in her storyline, in her comic, she died. So that's why like Wonder Woman's absent. And then her mother takes over. Hippolyta becomes a member of the Justice League as Wonder Woman. That's why the costume kind of looks a little different later on the run. And then Wonder Woman returns, Diana returns to be Wonder Woman. So they have a lot of really cool like storylines there. Then you have one where like the Justice League of the future come to like come back from the past. And then you have one where, let's see what else. You have Justice League Crisis on Two Earths was the one that I believe, I have a train on that. It's JLA Earth 2. And that's the one that Grant did with Frank Quitely, his co-creator, when they did Superman, did All-Star Superman, which was a fantastic storyline. One that I am 100% like in line with. That's the greatest Superman story ever written. So, and then also what they did, and it's one of the storylines that I really like. Actually, let me see, what else did they do? Actually, no. The funny part, another funny part about this run, I know I'm jumping around, but there's so much stuff that pops in my head for this, is that so Superman will go, so immediately after the New World Order arc is when he has the blue suit. Then like halfway through the run, that's when they, in Superman's comics, basically said, no, the blue suit's stupid, put him back in the regular suit. And then he got it back. So that's really funny. I really love how like it's back and forth. If you're just reading the JLA run, like all of a sudden Hippolyta's Wonder Woman, Superman's in some weird blue suit, but Grant Morrison somehow saves it. Oh, you also have one where the Justice League teams up with the Wildcats. Now, the Wildcats were a 90s Wildstorm project that Jim Lee invented. So pretty freaking awesome, if I may say so myself. So so you may be wondering, how do I know all this about Grant Morrison's Justice League run? Well, currently it and Jeff Johns' run are my favorite Justice League runs of all time, completely. And then you also have, I've talked about this many different streams, the JLA Omnibus by Grant Morrison. This is his entire Justice League run, which includes the first arc, World Order. I think the next one, one of the next ones is when they fight, the next epic story would be like the Rock of Ages storyline. Then you have the JLA Wildcats and so forth. Then also in the back of the book, it has the entire graphic novel, which is Justice League Earth 2, which once again, it's them fighting the crime syndicate. This is the return of the crime syndicate, because I believe at this point there was only one Earth in the multiverse. And they just put them in the antimatter universe where everything is in the same way that in our world, everything turns toward good. On theirs, everything tends toward evil. So that's a nice way of Grant Morrison examining the like dichotomy between good and evil. So next, I don't think I'm gonna end it here. It's only 24 minutes. So the storyline took way less time. So in other words, so let's talk about what other movies I think inspired. So, actually, what's interesting is that White Martians has been the sort of reason for the Justice League to form in other mediums, like they sort of did a similar, like a sort of tangential storyline in Justice League Origin. And what I mean by Secret Origin, I think, what I mean by that is the first 3 episodes of Justice League, the cartoon series, they sort of had like a stand-in for the White Martians, but they weren't the White Martians. So I'm like, okay, but it's sort of the same concept. These invaders that can shapeshift come to Earth and had wiped out the Green Martians. So it's kind of the same thing. It was even mostly the same roster, except instead of Kyle, it was John Stewart. Then instead of Aquaman, at first, it was Hawkgirl. But the rest of it was pretty much that lineup. And at not one point did Superman have a stupid blue suit. So I'm really happy about that. And so there was that. You also, this is like sort of Aquaman and that Green Lantern, the classic Justice League lineup, because you also had, I'm pulling up my trade for Scott Snyder's Justice League Run the Totality, where you have like that lineup. So that was pretty much the Justice League lineup, short of Aquaman and Cyborg. So it was Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, except this Flash is Barry Allen. Then you have Hawkgirl and John Stewart, and then Martian Manhunter. So that was pretty much the cartoon team. So it was after this that team became standard, because previous to that, it was like basically understood that the Justice League used to be the team where they would just throw people on there who couldn't sell their own books in the hopes that they would get a sales boost by having like a Batman or a Superman on there. So Grant Morrison was like, in the same way that Bendis did when he brought back the Avengers, because when Bendis took over Avengers after Avengers Disassembled, he was like, why are all these C and D tier characters on here? Why aren't like Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and like the classic lineup on the team? So Grant Morrison did that similar idea. He goes, wait a second. So the Justice League is supposed to be our premier superhero team, but you basically throw on like the characters that can't sell. That really makes no sense. You can have, now here's the thing I always say. You can have like the occasional new character join the league. Like there's no problem with that. You can have a C and D tier character on the league and then hope it brings them up. It doesn't always happen, like when Bendis put Naomi on the league for no reason, but you still have to preserve this lineup, because this is the lineup that everyone's going to think of when they think of Justice League, particularly in the Snyder Cut era. So that's where your key is. You have to have all of these characters, and then you can bring in one or two new characters, because people are going to read Justice League for all the different team dynamics, and then they can be introduced to this new character, or like a character that you want to elevate. Like, let's see, who else? Like, let me put it this way. Jessica Cruz, Green Lantern. I always talk about how fantastic that character is. She debuted in Justice League, in Jeff Johns' Justice League run, because part of that was Forever Evil. And then after Forever Evil, she was the new Power Ring. And then in the lead up to Darkseid War, she tamed the Volthoom Ring, and then was able to, she sacrificed herself to save Flash, and then she got a Green Lantern ring. In case you wonder who Volthoom is, in that run, it was basically like the Lantern ring itself was a sentient being named Volthoom, and Volthoom was actually the first, I believe, the first Lantern in the regular timeline. But in this one, he was the ring, and the ring took over people and fed off their fear. Kind of like a Yellow Lantern ring. So that's pretty much, again, what I'm saying is that Cruz began on the Justice League book, and then she got popular because she was one of the few new characters. And when you look at who wrote the character, Jeff Johns, she was able to be elevated to that. I would argue she's in the A tier area. Sort of, because there's so many Green Lanterns, but really when you think of Green Lanterns, you do think of the first four. You think of Hal, Kyle, Guy, and John, but I would argue she's the fifth, and then Simon Baz is the sixth, and then Teen Lantern and like Far Sector, like the last ones you think of when you think of Green Lantern. Unless you're reading like Future State Justice League or whatever the book is going to be for Dark Crisis. By the way, so here's how you know that DC has no confidence in the Dark Crisis Justice League members, because here's the thing, and here's how you know that those characters are, DC isn't confident in those new Justice League characters. Because guess what? if they were confident in John Kent's Superman, in the other ones, they would cancel these books. In other words, for Superman, Batman, for Clark, Bruce, Diana, and all that, they would cancel those books and just say, okay, so for right now, while Dark Crisis is going on, we're focusing on these characters. They don't, because they know that people only want to read Clark, Diana, and Bruce. You can have Elseworlds book, but for the mainline DC, they need these characters, not some weird other versions of them, just these characters. That's why I think DC has figured it out, or Zaslav has told them to start selling stuff or you're gone. So what they're going to do is they're going to use Dark Crisis to like reboot and pull back a couple of things. That's at least what I think. You guys can did disagree with me and put it in the context. So anyway, the question I would like to pose to you before I talk about some other stuff is, what was your, for those of you that have read Grant Morrison's Justice League run, what's your favorite story arc from it? Mine is probably, I'm in the middle of New World Order, not New World Order, Rock of Ages. I just, because I'm working my way through the Omnibus. That's why also it's a little pricey, but I would go with the Omnibus if you're thinking of buying his run, because you know what? It's the best value. You also get the JLA Earth 2 book, so it gives you a lot for your money. That's kind of what I would go with. And then so drop in the comments what you think your favorite Grant Morrison's JLA arc is. If you could form a Justice League arc, put in the comments who Justice League lineup, who would you put on it and why? And yeah, just drop them comments. So for right now, what else I want to talk about is a couple of some other new stuff. So I noticed that, okay, so on the Marvel front, I know we've been really slacking on covering Marvel stuff, but I figured since there was so much Snyderverse stuff, I just had to cover that. So something happened with the Marvel that I know Lad's happy about, and he comes back on the show, we'll talk about that. But Joe Quesada left Marvel, and I'm like, you may be wondering, who's Joe Quesada? All you have to do is, he's the one behind like One More Day and the dissolution of the Peter Parker Mary Jane marriage. And one of the stupidest things of all that they really pulled with Marvel. And it's one of the most, that's why when you go on Twitter after Joe Quesada announced he was leaving, everyone's like, good riddance. And everyone's like, can we bring the marriage back? Because people like the marriage of Mary Jane and Peter Parker. And that's, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they put that in there. Even though in the movie, she doesn't know he's Spider-Man, or she doesn't know Peter Parker and all that. But we'll see what happens. But I find it interesting how he's finally leaving. That's kind of weird. Felt this way when Dan DiDio left DC a couple of years ago. But it's interesting. I'm interested to see what direction this takes Marvel, who they name as his successor. Because remember, he was editor-in-chief. He was in charge of a lot of stuff. So I'm very interested to see where this rolls. Additionally, so we also got news that heavy rumor, that Zaslav wants to cancel all upcoming Superman projects, including the Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman project that no one wants, and then focus on Henry Cavill as Superman and make the universe centered around him, like it should be. The DC universe should be focused around Superman, because since arguably he's the inspiration in universe for every superhero. Not Wonder Woman, Superman. I know that they tried to say that Wonder Woman was the first superhero, but no. So yeah, I feel like that's the first step toward, and this is not a restore the Snyderverse like argument. I'm just saying that's the first step into getting some DC direction going, because whether or not you're pro or against the Snyderverse, I'm just saying DC Films has been pretty like directionless lately. Now you could say, okay, you can still enjoy like some of the films, because I enjoyed like Shazam, Aquaman. Shazam and Aquaman are really the best ones that came out. The Batman. You could say the Joker. So there have been some really good films, and then there's Birds of Prey, and some other really bad movies that really shouldn't have been made. And even Zaslav is like, why you the finance guy on Zaslav's team was like, Warner Brothers greenlit a lot of projects that didn't make sense, like the Wonder Twins movie, and that got canceled like immediately. Actually, as soon as the cast was announced, they're like, nope, we're done. So I very much appreciate that from Zaslav, that he was like, nope. Then half the CW got canceled. I'm still convinced that I think Gotham Knights is going to be canceled pretty soon. I think they're going to let Blue Beetle go through because they're still, they've invested a lot into that project, so they're going to go with that. Flash is interesting because I'm saying, according to insiders, Ezra is getting help. So great. Hopefully he doesn't mess up again, because I'm thinking eventually they may have to just pull Flash, which would be sad because I really want to see that movie. I'm saying if he keeps doing stuff, like if he keeps attacking people, they may eventually have to just say, okay, you know what, we're done right now. And then, or they may just, see, some people have said, well, they could recast him and redo the movie, reshoots. But here's the problem with that. It's harder than, like, say, replacing Amber Heard with Emilia Clarke, because Amber Heard is not the star of Aquaman 2. By the way, I'm pretty sure at this point that her role is going to be gone from Aquaman 2, which is great. Anyway, going back to what I was saying before, okay, so what I'm saying here is that the Flash is the lead role, and there's also another version of him as the evil Flash. In other words, Ezra's playing two versions of the Flash. So that's kind of difficult, because it's going to be very costly if they were to, like, say, okay, so we're just going to replace Ezra in the entire movie. Very, very, very different. Then they have to practically redo the entire movie. That's why I don't think that's going to happen. That's why I say if he keeps doing it, their best option, honestly, would be to just pull the movie from circulation, which would suck because I've heard good things about it so far, and I am excited for the Flash, because I think it's about time the Flash got a movie. First off, he's one of the pillars of DC. Now, okay, in terms of the Snyderverse. Now, there was another rumor that came out today that they want to do an R-rated Zack Snyder universe. Now, okay, bear in mind on HBO Max, the only thing that's stopping me from necessarily taking that rumor seriously is the fact that, all right, that Zaslav did come out that he wants a very small budget for those HBO Max movies and shows. Now, it could very well be that he was advised by his people recently that these movies will sell and he will make back that money. It's not as much of a gamble. So, and once again, it's the Justice League. It could be that he meant those when he said like 30,000, was it 30,000 or something like that? That very small, or was it 30 mil? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's 30 mil. It could be when he said that really small, like, budget, that was like for lesser known characters and stuff, and less known commodities like the Justice League. So there is that advantage that you do have the most recognizable characters in pop culture as your headline characters. And then you have a director that people's opinion has gotten more positive since the release of the Snyder Cut, and more people want to see it. So there's ways to take this as true, and there's ways to take this as false. My thing is that until we get an official statement, I wouldn't take a lot of these rumors out, because a lot of these are just people looking for clicks. Even if it comes from a newspaper that looks reliable, don't necessarily take it at face value. I mean, don't necessarily just blindly believe it, because a lot of this is done for clicks, because they know saying anything about the Snyderverse being restored will generate clicks. So that's why I say take this with a heavy grain of salt. It could very well happen, but with a very heavy grain of salt. The Superman thing I can believe 100%. That is probably true, because even with past statements by Zaslav or by Warner Brothers Discovery, in that Variety article, they said you have Superman, you're not doing anything with Superman. And with them canceling a lot of these other projects like the Wonder Twins, it makes sense that they'd go, okay, you know what? Let's center around who's supposed to be the pillar of the DC. Now, the most recognizable emblem in the world is the Superman S. So they would want to hammer that hard and go with the version of Superman that everyone likes. That's why, and also they're really angry with J.J. Abrams. I talked about this on the last stream I did with Nick. By the way, we're doing another one soon, so I'll drop the information on that soon. But they said this also is backed up by the fact that they're really dissatisfied with J.J. Abrams. So they could say, and by they I mean Warner Brothers Discovery could end up saying, okay, our deal, nope, that's done. You haven't done anything for Warner Brothers Discovery. You're done. Your Superman project is canceled. And they could just tell Ta-Nehisi Coates to hit the road, and we're done. We're done with that. We're sticking with Henry Cavill. We're sticking with the version of Superman that everyone likes, because for the most part, everyone loves Henry Cavill as Superman. I'd say that's why I call him our generation's Christopher Reeves, because he's the epitome of modern Superman. So the Superman rumor I would take a little more seriously than the R-rated Justice League, R-rated Snyderverse return. Although if that's on theaters instead of HBO Max, that also could be more believed, because what they could just do, in other words, is just say, okay, so we're going to give you the HBO Max, we're going to give you the theaters. Then what you're going to do, just make it a reasonable length. You could do 3.5 hours or so. And then you can release that extra half hour. You can release the extended version on HBO Max, kind of like the Snyder Cut or BVS. In other words, they released the theatrical version, which Snyder would have more control over. So it's not like another Justice League. And then make it a reasonable length for movie theaters, even though I think they could have released a full 4 hours of the Snyder Cut and been fine, because it flies like that. So go with that. And then at a later date, maybe when it's out of theaters, we'll release the full 4-hour version, or however Zach wants to make it, on HBO Max. So that's a way you could take that seriously. We'll just have to see what happens. I still maintain faith that the Snyderverse is going to be restored, because it's just money. And in addition to the other stuff, once again, just because I want to see the Snyderverse does not mean cancel the other stuff. There's room for both. That's what I don't get with people. But that's where I'm going to leave you guys. I think that's a good place to end this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this sort of fusion of talking about a storyline and then doing some general news. I did this because I knew that this storyline was not going to take us that long to go through. And I figured 4 times, so I have something to talk about. Let's talk about some news. Anyway, I will see you guys next week, and stay heroic, everyone. Bye-bye.